Okay, we can start with the next panel. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the panel AI You Can Trust in Healthcare. Before we start, I know it's before lunch, we are tired, but I would like to get a pulse of the audience and see what do you believe. I would like to ask you to raise your hand if you have used an AI tool in the last week. Okay, yeah, almost everyone, right? But now I would like to ask you to keep your hand up if you would use an AI tool to diagnose a loved one that is having a serious condition. Okay, much less people. So this exactly gap on the hands between usefulness and trustworthiness is what we are here going to discuss today. And without any delay, I would like to introduce the speakers. Firstly, I am Athina. I'm a machine learning engineer at Roche, and together with me I have three leaders from the whole ecosystem. I have Eirini Petrou. She is a doctoral researcher at the Health and Ethics Policy Lab of ETH in Zurich. We have Naya Giannakopoulou, who is an AI architect in Microsoft Innovation Hub. And we have Dimi Karatasios, head of applied AI at Pfizer. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Let's align now on the definitions. So, in one sentence, I would like to ask you, when you think of trustworthy AI, what is something non-negotiable for you?
First of all, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Athina. Really pleasure to bring the ethics perspective, which is sometimes almost often missing. I have to start with the change of discourse. We started with trust in AI, and now we move towards trustworthy AI, so that we start from a relational concept, an emotional continent, trust, and we move to actually making the systems trustworthy. To do that, we need actually the systems to be socio-technical. So we need to not only build the systems, but think about who is building it, with which data, to whom the data belong, basically, and also who is using it. And then, of course, along with that, to have this socio-technical system, we also have to remember the temporal humility, the fact that what is trustworthy today, maybe in 24 months, it's not anymore. So we have to think of trustworthiness in AI as not a one-time achievement, but as something that actually has to adapt continuously. So I think this is, for me, as an ethicist, the trustworthy AI concept, at least for now.
Thanks a lot. Naya, what about you?
Hello, hi everyone. Thanks for the introduction as well, and very nice to be here to contribute in this discussion. Now, when it comes to trustworthy AI in healthcare, I would just highlight more on what Eirini said, right? It's about designing and building highly reliable socio-technical systems that we need to expand more than just thinking about the accurate models at the center of the system, right? Because LLMs are becoming more and more as a commodity. So instead of only looking as having trust to these models, it's about what do we build around them. However, when we talk about healthcare, I would say the non-negotiable part is really about clinical safety backed by explainability. So if you have an AI system that's involved in patient care, it's about creating outputs that are reliable and clinicians can make sense of them, and having the human in the loop for the decision-making process.
Thanks, then. And what about you, Dimi?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's very hard to gain the trust of the public in a highly regulated sector like healthcare, as we operate. So to gain that trust, I think we need to build reliable systems, consistently reliable systems, and be transparent as well, so people can see what happens underneath and be explainable.
Exactly. So it's about explainable systems and designing the system, not only one thing. So, Eirini, your research focuses on the ethics of medicine, from Gen AI in medicine. So what do you think, from your perspective, is one of the ethical blind spots that is being overlooked, or some risks that we don't take care so much these days?
That's an excellent question that would require another summit to discuss the ethics of generative AI in medicine. But I decided to just maybe mention the three core ones that come back to my mind, and in research we see often. One is old but gold, if I may, for lack of a better phrase. Health data poverty is still a big ethical blind spot when it comes to implementing generative AI to healthcare. We have missing data we have biased data sets. That, of course, translates to actually incorporating the social inequities in the systems. When these are operationalized to AI systems in healthcare, then you just amplify the social disparities that already exist. So this is a core issue that still remains a bigger issue, actually, in generative AI, because we now have massive data sets that just amplify these disparities. And of course, the digital divide and the digital exclusion don't help with this blind spot, which remains still to be solved. Then I think a novel concept that we see in generative AI ethics is actually sycophancy. So these models are built to actually agree with the user. When you use them, they actually prioritize user agreement than proper reasoning. And this is how they're built. It's not that they do it to be deceptive, it's just how they're built to work. So in healthcare, let's say we have a provider that's, sepsis is like the leading cause, one of the leading causes of death. And a provider asks an LLM integrated in healthcare and says like, well, this doesn't look like sepsis. Do you agree? The LLM most probably we're going to say, oh yes, I agree with you. So this is sycophancy. It's quite exhibited in LLMs. It's something that some LLMs recently, like DeepSeek, they're trying other models. They try to solve it with showing reasoning with the models, but it's something that still remains and actually emerges as a crucial ethical blind spot. And finally, the proximity gap. So essentially, we have great tech, but we don't have proper integration. And I think Dimitris is going to talk more about that. But essentially, there's a misalignment on incentives. So we have different incentives from different stakeholders. And in healthcare is a complex ecosystem. So when these incentives are not aligned, proper integration will never happen. So what do we need, ethics-wise, is actually proper incentive systems that eventually are going to create a positive chain reaction. And to do that, we need good ethics and good governance. So we need ethics by design to incorporate ethics from designing the tools and not retrofitting them after, because in healthcare, we have to remember that the harm is borne by the patient. And then good governance. We still need agile regulation as we move towards generative AI. So these things, keeping these things in mind, eventually are going to be able to at least, hopefully, lead to a more responsible deployment of these tools in medicine. These are the three, at least, core blind spots that I would like to raise.
Yeah, that was very important issues, especially the sycophancy one. Like, it seems very scary.
And it's quite new. Only from 2024, we see actually research coming and testing sycophancy. And sycophancy is actually something that occurs when you interact with the tool, so not when you're designing it. So it's also something that usually audit trails for now are missing. So we have to actually think also about how we check it after it's deployed.
Yeah, that's an important point. So Naya, from your perspective, the more technical one, what are the safeguards that we can use or any workflows that we can add already by design, especially for healthcare, and how those differ from other sectors, for example, finance and others?
Okay, I'll try to be short as much as I can. I would say having the trustworthy by design, right, such as what Eirini highlighted, I would say what this means is being industry agnostic. This means already by the business envisioning side and the solution envisioning phase, where you gather requirements of the use case. What do you want the AI system to do? Define the success criteria, define the acceptance criteria, assess the risks that the system will impose, but also have mitigation plans for each one of the risks. So there are several frameworks that one can deploy during the envisioning phase. For example, just to take from my company in Microsoft, we have something that we call Responsible AI Standard. So that's a full set of principles that one, as I said, can implement. And this is available to public for enterprises and organizations to see. At the same time, when we move towards building phase, there we introduce the evaluation criteria with real data during the testing phase, and having a gated process as you move to production. So after you have the testing phase, you have the deployment phase with real-time monitoring evaluation. Now, depending on the tool and how the application is being built, if it's classical ML or if it's more agentic AI, then there are out-of-the-box tools that one can deploy. I would say it would depend. Now to your other point regarding what is difference in healthcare versus finance, for example, I would say, let's start by the obvious, right? In finance, if you have an error, you lose some money. In patient care, if you have an error, it can really impact human lives. But I would say other than that, both are really highly regulated domains. There is the EU AI Act that, for example, for healthcare, this would involve high-risk use cases, flags, which means that the hospitals, the public sector, or the pharmas would need to keep that in mind. I will pause here.
Of course, yes. And now that we also got the technical part, I would like to ask you, Dimi, you are the representation of the real world. You work at Pfizer. So you have to balance ethics and everything technical, but you also have to deliver products. And this usually needs to also happen fast. So what would you, where do you see Gen AI having the biggest impact right now?
As you said, there is a tension between delivering, governance, and ethics when it comes to delivering AI applications. And it's very hard to balance this out and create an application that's going to be adopted and be useful. So there are a few things there. One is to get it adopted, you need to, of course, need to be trustworthy, and you need to provide value to the customer that's going to use this tool, whatever that is. In the healthcare sector, it might be the patients, it might be the doctors, it might be the scientists that develop the drugs. So there are a few applications that we've seen value created, and they are quite trustworthy as they are now. One would be content generation in general. So generating documents, for instance, for the drug development world, there's a lot of documents that need to be created at each step of the process. And many of those documents relate to the previous documents in the previous stage that were created. So to create those documents, you need information coming from different sources and being synthesized to create those documents. It's a lengthy process now. It's very manual. Now with Gen AI, we have the capacity to automate this process, create the knowledge layer that can capture the different entities that are in those documents and inform the documents that come after it in the pipeline of how they should be synthesized, and getting some real time benefits in this process. Have seen up to 50% initial, and then it can only go up from here. Another application would be, it's generic again, it can adapt to any kind of industry. It's knowledge mining. So essentially, you have a lot of different data sources. It could be structured and unstructured data. It could be tables. It could be PDF documents, Excel files. And from those, you need to extract information to answer a specific set of questions that are related to each and everyone's role. To get that, it's very hard. Do it manually, of course. So now you can create RAG systems that can tap into those different resources, or even agentic systems that can enable the use of different data streams altogether and synthesize insights and answers to those questions that our scientists or our healthcare professionals might have. And that enables them to be precise and fast. And the trustworthiness in this part comes from having citations and relating its part of the answer to the specific document that it was related to and where it came from. So you can audit back and see what exactly happened and how the response was synthesized. of course, all of those have nothing to do, they have something to do, but the underlying Gen AI model is not what makes the difference here, it's the engineering that happens around it. So just to double click on that, it's very important how we build everything around our models, how we enable, for instance, how we ground it, how we enable citations, how we enable guardrails to safeguard against responses that we don't want to surface, or even to hide personal information.
Yeah, that's very insightful. Thanks for adding. Now, because we have only a few minutes left, I would like to ask you a quick conclusion. We discussed about the issues, but now let's discuss about the future. Where do you really see the biggest breakthrough coming in healthcare with Gen AI? It's for every one of you, if you want to give an answer.
Beyond what Dimi just mentioned, and I mean, the applications are vast, but I think I really want to highlight the possibility of actually enhancing interaction in healthcare. We can use LLMs, generative AI models, agentic models in the macroscope, so in the clinical workflows, but also in the micro, so by ourselves, in our own place, in our own pace. So, of course, if we do it responsibly, and if the systems are built responsibly, this can actually enhance not only the human-to-machine interaction, but also the human-to-human, because LLMs offer the possibility to personalize information, to facilitate dialogue, essentially if you have also patients that speak another language, or the health literacy is not as evolved. So LLMs can actually enhance the relational core of healthcare. They can democratize access to healthcare through making better the communication aspect, and of course the interaction with a doctor, which is actually a core part of healthcare and medicine. So I really believe that we're going to have a great, hopefully and responsible big bang there in terms of interaction with LLMs in healthcare.
Thank you. Then what about you, Naya?
I would say if I had to pick one that would be really revolutionary for the next, I would say, less than 5 years, I would say it's more, in my view, predictive modeling with generative AI. What this means is, imagine if you could see a patient's health, let's say, path. Instead of having one option, you could see several options. So it's more about having simulation journeys, consolidating multimodal data from from health records, from genomics, from lab results, and be able to see how a patient's life will progress and have personalized care. I would say the question there would be less about technical capability, but more to whom that would be available.
Absolutely. And
yeah, I'm going to expand a bit on both answers, actually. It was very insightful, both of them. What I would like to see is the standard of care drops the last few years a lot because of aging population and the amount of doctors that we have that have a high workload. So what I would like to see is enabling those clinical workflows becoming automated, enabling the doctor to have more time to spend with the patient and actually care for the patient.
thanks a lot. Yes, please. We have still some minutes. So you need a microphone? I can bring you.
I'm a patient. So I've got a personal way of thinking about all this. I'm 100% for it, but of course, having security measures in many aspects. For instance, I don't want the big companies to make the databases, to construct all the data where they find it cheap. Because there's a huge problem with many countries and societies that they don't provide data. So in those matters concerning our health, we should have our own data of our country. Apart from that, there's a lot of issues about the goals. Of course, it should be, for me, a very helpful way to just go in the system and have options. But how do we educate doctors and health professionals apart from us, patients? That's gonna be the main theme of the next years, I suppose, because only that way we can build trust.
I'm afraid we don't have room for questions. We are slightly running out of time. So,
If there is any small comment by someone?
I just want to briefly say that this circles back to the health data poverty and the fact that we cannot use US data sets to use them for Greek population, let's say about COVID or whatever. And then the second point you raised, which is really important, goes back to the need to reskill people. So we discussed about deskilling and AI coming to deskill people, but I think the discourse needs to shift towards actually reskilling people, doctors, providers, anyone involved in this area, so they can actually be able to deal with these machines and these tools. But so yeah, I think fair points either way.
Thanks a lot then, everyone. And for any other comments, you can speak later. Thank you.